After his disastrously bad performance as a presidential candidate 4 years ago, no one had a right to be surprised when Rick Perry was the first to drop out of the Republican presidential race last year when he was polling below 1% in Iowa. And today, no one noticed when Rick Perry endorsed his state's junior senator for president.
I'm really enthusiastic about this man, Ted Cruz.
He said that on Morning Joe, and Donald Trump, who is a Morning Joe fan, didn't even bother to do a hate tweet against Rick Perry for that. The Perry endorsement probably means exactly one vote for Ted Cruz if Ted Cruz makes it as far as the Texas primary on March 1st. Donald Trump was busy on Twitter today attacking Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is a nervous wreck. He is making reckless charges, not caring for the truth. His poll numbers are way down. Cruz going down fast in recent polls, dropping like a rock. Lies never work. That was my favorite. Of course, Donald Trump's stream of consciousness pathological lying has actually worked quite well for him, pushing him to the top of the Republican polls. But it also means that most people in the media seem to think everything Donald Trump says is a complete lie and completely ignorable. But Trump has gotten some support from constitutional scholars for raising doubts about whether Ted Cruz fits the definition of natural-born citizen as it appears once in the Constitution as a qualification for president.
He's got a problem with his Canadian birth. He was born in Canada. It's a real question. And, you know, as you know, Lawrence Tribe from Harvard and many other lawyers are saying he can't do what he's doing. He's not allowed to run. And you have some lawyers that say definitively he cannot run. That's
Is that why his numbers have gone down in Iowa?
I don't know. I think it has an impact because I think they said 36% of the people agree that he can't run for president. He was born in Canada, and he was born on Canadian soil. Now, he can run for Prime Minister of Canada, but I don't think he can. I honestly don't know if he can run. And there's a question mark.
Now, whenever Trump speaks, he lies, but it doesn't mean everything he says is a lie. Trump tells a couple of lies there. Harvard Law School professor Lawrence Tribe said that the definition of natural-born citizen is not settled law. He said that here on this program, and that it is therefore a valid question about Ted Cruz's qualification to be president. But Professor Tribe has not said definitively that Ted Cruz does not meet that definition. And Trump also lied about 36% of people agreeing that Ted Cruz can't run for president. A Monmouth poll showed that 65% of Republicans say they believe Ted Cruz is a natural-born citizen. Only 12 say that he isn't, and 24% support what has now become most legal scholars' position by saying that they just don't know. Tonight, at a rally in New Hampshire, Donald Trump said this.
My new battle is with a gentleman named Ted Cruz, because you got to speak the truth. You got to speak the truth. The Canadian, the man from Canada. Thank you. That was very helpful. I don't know. That's so succinct. That was very good, actually. He screams out, the Canadian. Yeah, that's right, the Canadian. He could run right now for Prime Minister of Canada. He'd have no problem. But he does have a problem. I mean, does anyone agree with me on this? Because it seems that, right? How do you, okay, so you have a constitution. You have very strong, you know, all your life. You're here, you have to be born in this country, born in this country. He's born in Canada, on Canadian soil, and, I mean, come on.
It appears there's enough doubt in the Republican electorate about Ted Cruz's eligibility to affect the polls. In a new Fox News Iowa poll, Trump is now at 34%, up from 26% in December. Cruz is now at 23%, down from 28% in December. Here is how Cruz supporter Iowa Congressman Steve King is handling the eligibility question on the campaign trail in Iowa.
I think there's zero legal question about this, and Congress addressed this in 1790, and the people that did so were the ones that wrote the language into the Constitution itself, and so they knew what natural-born citizen was. They defined it then, and Ted's birth is very consistent with what was put in place then. So I think it's disingenuous on people to make that an issue.
Joining us now, Mary Brigid McManamon. She's a constitutional law professor at Widener University's Delaware Law School. Professor McManamon, you've written about this for the Washington Post. What's your reaction to what Steve King just said there in defense of Ted Cruz's eligibility?
Well, he makes a fundamental mistake that a lot of people talking about this make, and that is there's this notion of separation of powers. And the power to naturalize, which is to change someone who's an alien into an American citizen, is given to Congress. Natural-born citizenship is constitutionalized in the Second Amendment. So whatever the Congress did in 1790 doesn't affect Article 2.
So your position on, your reading of the Constitution leads you to what conclusion about Ted Cruz's eligibility?
Ted Cruz is not eligible. I would go further than Lawrence Tribe and say that the meaning was clear and knowable, and the framers of the Constitution intended it to be static, just as the 35-year-old requirement and the 14-year residency requirement was meant to be static. And
when you say static, the people who say Ted Cruz is eligible all point to things that Congress did after the Constitution was written, and you're saying because the Constitution has to be held static on this point, nothing the Congress wrote after that would affect those words in the Constitution.
That's correct. Unlike, say, a concept like due process, which has evolved over time, the requirements for the presidency have not.
Professor Mary Brigid McManamon, thank you for joining us once again on this. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Joining us now from Des Moines, Iowa, is Robert Costa, national political reporter for the Washington Post and an MSNBC political analyst. Also with us here in New York, Kurt Anderson, host of Studio 360. Robert Costa, the movement in the polls, it's hard to say whether that's attributable to what Donald Trump is saying about citizenship. There's a lot of other things in the wind out there in Iowa, aren't there?
It's a full barrage, Lawrence, against Senator Cruz. It's not just Trump. It's the Republican establishment. The sitting governor is calling on Cruz to be defeated. You have Senator Rubio going after Cruz. You have Trump being relentless in his chatter about the Canadian birth. This is, I think, when you look at Cruz's campaign, a few weeks ago he was the favorite, but he may have peaked too early. He's trying to come back now, and he's playing down expectations.
Kurt, the Cruz versus Trump thing is going to be the first big battle here. Mm-hmm. If Cruz does not win Iowa, might this be the end of Cruz?
Well, since, as Robert just said, I mean, Cruz has been the favorite all along, and it is the perfect Republican state for him, this highly evangelical state. I don't know if it's the end. It's not quite so much it's not the definitive end, but it's really trouble for him, because I have a hard time in any event seeing Ted Cruz doing well in New Hampshire, probably not even coming in, certainly not second, maybe not even third. If he loses Iowa as well, it's a different ballgame for him.
Trump tweeted today, it's time for Ted Cruz to either settle his problem with the fact that he was born in Canada and was a citizen of Canada, or get out of the race. Robert Costa, is there anything that Cruz campaign intends to do or say differently about this citizenship issue between now and Monday?
Between now and Monday, not really. I've been connecting with the Cruz campaign today, and you get the sense is they're in a ground game mode. They're trying to get evangelicals out to vote. They're not trying to get into a constitutional argument, and they believe Cruz's status, his reputation as an attorney, gives them the credibility to move forward without having to counter Trump day after day.
Let's look at this new Ted Cruz ad in Iowa.
I lived in New York City and Manhattan all my life, okay? So, you know, my views are a little bit different than if I lived in Iowa.
They are different, like on abortion.
Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I am pro-choice in every respect.
And what does Trump think about Iowa?
How stupid are the people of Iowa?
Donald Trump, New York values, not ours.
You know, my views are a little bit different than if I lived in Iowa.
I'm Ted Cruz, and I approve this message.
Kurt Anderson, in old-fashioned campaigning, by which I mean, you know, 2 years ago, yes. As we understand the universe, that would be very effective. But there's no new information in there for Iowa voters. They know that Trump has changed his mind about this stuff.
Absolutely, and that's absolutely discounted in and baked into the cake. Whereas, I don't know if the citizenship thing, how that has or will affect the poll, but it's new information. And it's new it's not just a charge. It's the Constitution, after all, and this constitutional originalist, Ted Cruz, is having a problem with him. That if it were not he having this problem, you know that Ted Cruz would be making the same case. So I think as yet another thing that can be thrown at him, along with the poll momentum that might stick, it's not helping him.
Let's listen to Glenn Beck going against Trump in Iowa.
Glenn Beck. I mean, every time I see him, he's crying. He's a whack job. He's crying. Tears. No, Glenn Beck. And every time I see this guy, he's like talking, crying. What a mess, man. You know who he's endorsing today, Cruz? Can you believe it? I got Sarah Palin. I'll take Sarah Palin every single day.
Okay, that was the exact opposite of Glenn Beck going against Trump. But Robert Costa, who's winning this one? Sarah Palin versus Glenn Beck?
The Beck-Palin divide is really indicative of the Cruz-Trump race. Cruz, at the beginning, months ago, had the movement right with him. He was getting the true blue conservatives to sign on and say, we're with them. But now Trump is muddying the waters with the Palin endorsement. He's been going hard after pastors nationally and in Iowa. He's been introduced by different key figures at events over the weekend. Senator Grassley came to a Trump event on Saturday. You had another pastor from Dallas megachurch introduce Trump at one of those events. So it's not clear to many Iowans who are watching who exactly is the evangelical favorite. Cruz is the front runner for that block, but not the wholesale champion.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there for tonight. Robert Costa, thank you very much for joining us from Iowa tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up,